What's
Happy Friday. I'm so excited to have this amazing guest on. Everyone, she doesn't really need an introduction. Her name is Daraja.
Hey.
Um, so first of all, thank you so much for coming on. I'm super
Thanks for
excited.
having me. I was
You
like,
are say it.
I was gonna say, I was like really hoping that you would ask me to be a guest. I didn't want to like impose and be like, hey, can I jump on your podcast? But
No,
yeah.
girl. I thought I had you on my list like before I even started it.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah, I'm just also thinking about like, oh yeah, she's moving and she's also pregnant, and I knew that there was a time there where you were not feeling great during that
Oh
first
my God.
trimester, pretty much the whole time during the trimester, right?
Yeah, once week 6 hit, it was like, oh, we're in this.
There's no going back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we hadn't had like a confirmation appointment at that point. Because like what you do is you'll go and do a confirmation pregnancy ultrasound, and they'll be like, "Yep, there's a baby in there." But so like we didn't get that until week 9 because we were literally like moving right when we found out that I was pregnant. So
You found out at week 9, or you found out
we
earlier?
found out at week 3 actually.
Okay,
So like a week before because I was peeing on sticks like nobody's business, just waiting.
How many pregnancy tests did you do?
Oh my God. I mean, I did buy like, because you can buy like cheap 25 packs off of
Oh,
Amazon.
I didn't
I
know.
didn't, yeah. Funny enough, our friend Kaylee,
Yeah.
sent me links to just like little hacks, and she was like, here, just buy these. And I was like, why would anybody need a 25, 50, 100 count pack of
Because they
pregnancy
really want
tests?
to have a baby.
And then, yeah, and I was like, okay, these tests are expensive. It's like 12, 15 bucks, for two, like, of the clear blue or like the first response. I was like, I'm not going to just keep buying these. So
Yeah.
the little strip tests were just as reliable for anybody who's wondering. Um, they're cheap and easy to get off Amazon Prime. And that was actually the first positive I got before any of the other ones. So
you got a positive on one of those, and then you did like the big one, like clear blue.
yeah, I did the clear blue, just like the regular like line test, and then once that was like for sure probably going to be a positive, I did the digital, and that was when Keith was like, "Oh, we are for real pregnant." I was like,
For real.
"Yeah." So, but yeah, for like I think 2 months or so, probably a little bit more. I would want to say like 10 weeks. I was like, eh,
Yeah.
not feeling it.
How do you feel now?
So much better. Like I have energy now. I still get fatigued pretty easily. I have not tested myself in the gym actually just yet. It's been since week 6 that I've not had a workout other than
Oh
just like
wow.
walking.
That's
Yeah.
probably like the longest you've been without training, right?
Yeah, for
Like
real.
how many weeks is that? 6, 8 weeks?
I'm 17 weeks now, so
Okay.
like a little over 10 weeks.
Damn.
Um, really just because of the fatigue and the nausea was like the biggest things keeping me out. And then now it's just like, well, if I go train or go work out, am I gonna have energy for the rest of the day to like do literally anything else? Like,
Yeah,
so
so you're prioritizing like work, I'm guessing, and just
yeah,
like life stuff, getting ready for the baby, also like settling into your new home. So
yeah.
tell me about like why you guys moved out to Colorado. What was your thought process on like that move, and like how things are now that you're like settled in?
Yeah, so the biggest thing was really Keith's job. We had been in Florida. I've been living in Florida since 2011, so like it's been a long time that like Florida's been my home, and then my brother and my dad still live there, so it was just nice. And then just friends that also live nearby, and then just golf. Keith, for those who don't know, is a golf professional. So he works. He used to work for TPC Sawgrass. For anyone who knows what golf is, like they host the Players Championship
I
every
have a
year.
lot of golf fans, so
Right.
I'm really excited.
Right. But
Really.
they host a big like major tournament every single year. And so it was a nice whenever he got offered that job, it was like a nice kind of like introduction into the corporate golf world.
Mhm.
Um, before he was working at a private golf club. And so he got a taste of that, didn't really love it after a little while, was just like not kind of like why he loves his job. It was more just based around like meeting bottom lines, money, right? Not really about the experience of
I
the
love
members and things
training.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in his hands, like we're just tied with certain things. And then also just he wants to keep moving up in that realm. So, the opportunity was just there to kind of, and we've also always talked about like if we were to move, Colorado was like always the first place we talked about.
It's definitely your vibe.
So, yeah,
I
we
like it.
are very like active, like to be outdoors. We like hiking,
You
and we
don't
love
love extreme heat, right?
what?
You don't love extreme heat, right?
No,
Like you're not a fan.
no, no. So I was like, okay, cool. So I'm not going to be pregnant in like 100-degree, not 70% humidity. Sounds great.
Yeah.
So, and then yeah, he's loving it. He's adjusting to it pretty nicely. It took us a long time to unpack because I literally felt like dog shit for forever. But we finally finished unpacking for the most part, and we're hoping to not stay here for too long, like a year max, because we really want to just be able to settle into an actual home.
Hmm.
But we didn't want to just buy when we don't
Right.
really know the area. So that's our next like step. But for now, this is
Life,
home.
lifing. So when are you due?
November 30th. So like right around Thanksgiving.
That's dope.
So yeah.
How has pregnancy affected like your relationship to change and your just like how you think about your life and where it's going?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. So it I feel like I've learned to kind of be somebody that adapts pretty well to change. My like we've moved more frequently, I think, than like maybe average growing up. So I was born in Houston, then we moved to New York when I was like 2, and then my brother was born. Then we moved from like New York to Buffalo, which is still in New York, but like not as New York. And then we moved to Erie when I was in between middle school and elementary school,
Is
and
that
then
where is that? Erie?
Erie, Pennsylvania,
Okay, that's what I thought.
Lake Erie. Yeah. And then when I was getting ready to turn 16, my parents were like, "We're moving to Florida," and I was like, "Oh, cool." So, just like, yeah. And then obviously, my parents ended up getting divorced, and like that was a whole change. And then I went to school, so like I've had to kind of just be ready to adapt to like just situations throughout my whole life, and just accept like, okay, this is a different circumstance, different situation, but like life doesn't just stop, um, and you just keep moving. So, um, and then just through competing, I've also just learned like there's phases of competing. There's off season, there's post show, there's the reverse, there's prep, and you can't just be married to one situation and just have that be your constant in like your only comfort zone. You have to like you don't have to, but if you want to continue to feel like you're progressing and learning and moving forward, you can't just let yourself get stuck in a certain mindset or situation. Like there's just a lot of growing and evolution that has to come if you want to, I think, get more out of life too in
Yeah.
general.
And just move forward. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people think that like moving forward happens more naturally, and a lot of people, like you know this as a coach, like people don't really think about what change feels like before they're asked to make the change.
Hmm.
Then they're asked to make the change like by their coach, or like eat this instead of that, or like
Yeah.
do this with your day instead to manage your time schedule, training or food or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden it's this is uncomfortable, I
Yeah.
shouldn't have to do this. And it's
Yeah.
like there people have that almost an entitlement to their current safe comfortable environment,
For sure.
but they still want to change how they look or how they
Yeah.
feel. It's like,
Like they
well,
want the
what
results.
do you want?
Yeah, you want the results of like just having that end. You want to just like jump from where you are to like skip the in between and then like you're there.
Yeah.
And it don't work like
No.
that.
So you as an athlete have like you've gotten to pretty much the top, like top 4 at the Olympia, top 10 multiple times at the Olympia. How do you feel like has been your driving force behind that? Because you're obviously like you're a very smart, like healthy, health-minded athlete, and I think that's rare in the sport. Like
Mhm.
people are go 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 all the time, and
Yeah.
they compete year after year. And this year you had already chosen to take a full year plus off between seasons. Plus, obviously, the baby is making that happen too. So talk about like what that driving force has been and like where that has come from for you.
Yeah, I think wait, can you hear the like there's like can you hear that a little bit?
I can hear that. Yeah. Is that you?
I don't know. I don't think so. Let me mute myself and see.
Yeah, it's you. It says actual recording is higher quality, so it should be able to drop the stuff out, the background noise out. You can unmute yourself.
Okay. Let's see if it
It's fine
just
now. Yeah,
okay, we're back. We're back.
we're back.
Sorry. So yeah, I think, and it's funny because like I keep sometimes thinking back to that question that you asked me when I was like declaring to you guys, obviously not the world, but like my close group of friends, like, hey, I actually really am trying to get pregnant this year. And you kind of asked me like, hey, like what, like how do you feel about that impacting your competitive career? And like, do you feel like it's going to have an impact? Like, are you worried about that? And I think, I mean, my answer was, and like it applies to the question, is I have also just learned to trust my intuition very well and like my gut feeling and kind of like where my energy is being pulled. And I think it was really like the middle of prep for the 2023 Olympia that I started to realize, okay, like my body started to get pretty tired here, tired of this shit. And we were pushing and pushing, and obviously prep is hard. Like I'm not complaining that prep got hard. Um, it was really more about like how I noticed it just was different in like not a good way. I was like, we're going on a couple months of being the same weight. We're not really seeing any major changes. We're not peaking the way that I'm used to peaking, and meaning like my body wasn't responding the same. And it was like everything we threw at it was not working. And so I kind of accepted that what we were bringing to the Olympia was like not going to be what I knew we could bring. Obviously, compared to my top 4 at the previous Olympia, I just was like, no matter what happens, like, I don't really see myself placing that high again this year with what we were bringing. And that was
You knew that going
disappointing.
in. You felt
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely
How
felt it.
far out was that you had that thought?
Probably Arizona Pro. So, like, 8 weeks out.
Mm-hmm. That's hard to think that
Yeah.
like with that much time to be alone in that thought.
Yeah. It was
Like still
not fun.
going.
Yeah, because I was like, and that was also, the year that my signature flavor was coming out for core nutritionals for pump. And, I had built up so much momentum, going from 14th to 6th to 4th. And
Yeah,
it's like,
that's a lot of pressure.
what kept me going was I feel like I would have regretted more not seeing it through and seeing what happens, because you also never know like what other girls are going to bring, what they're going to favor that day, as far as
How your body's gonna
conditioning.
respond too. Sometimes
Exactly. So
sometimes there's just like a cortisol dump and you're like, oh shit, I feel great, let's go.
exactly, I was waiting for that.
Oh,
It never came.
it never came.
It never came. So yeah, and so I'm glad I saw it through, but I think just having that, and then also having had a very successful career pretty much from like once I won my pro card to like competing at the Olympia. Relatively speaking, obviously I have not won the title yet, but that,
Yeah, I'm pretty close.
we've come close. So it really is just about me knowing, okay, I'm 28 now. I've seen a gray hair. And we know we want more than one kid. And like we want them kind of spread out like 2 to 3 years apart. And my, aside from competing, which is, I love it. Obviously, like you understand as a competitor who loves to compete too. Um, it's been a major part of my life, but I also know that I want to have a family. I want to have kids. And being a mom, like, is just, I know it's not for everybody, but for me, I know that I want babies. And it just felt like my body was telling me the time, is right. For the last couple years or so, I've been talking about it. You've, probably heard me say it a lot. So that was like, you know, I was planning on taking this year off. I want to have babies. I didn't know, I don't take for granted the timeline either. People, it can take 7, 8, 9 months, a year, 2 years to conceive and have it be successful. So I didn't want to take that for granted. And also having endometriosis and PCOS, those are things that, I'm always told like it's going to be, hard. And so I just was like, well, let's just take the training wheels off and see what happens.
Pull that goalie.
Yeah, pull that goalie. And thank God it happened very quickly. Like literally 1 month it took us to get pregnant, and I was like, well, that also shows that I'm healthy, so yay me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what are your thoughts about your plans now?
Yeah.
Like post baby. I know you're kind of like you're gonna follow your intuition, but like
yeah,
you gotta have thoughts about that.
For sure. I mean, God, Keith is like texting me right now. He's not supposed to be able to get through, but it's fine. I don't want to rush my timeline for like how long it's gonna take me to like snap back. I want to give myself some grace, but I also know that I want to compete again. So we'll we really will just have to wait and see, but I don't want to just count myself out now that I've like, okay, I've been pregnant, I've had a baby. I want to give my body time to recover, but I love competing. It's a big part of my life. It's not really just about, placing for me. I just love to compete.
There's a long
a truck. Oh, okay. So we'll see. I've from what I've seen, which is encouraging. I've seen other moms come back like within a year of giving birth.
Angelica fucking crushed it this year, right?
Yeah,
like
right, exactly.
I know a lot of figure pros who have had multiple babies and gotten on the Olympia stage. Like, I think people do count themselves out, and they think that like competing is going to ruin their chances of having a baby. I have a client who right now she's been in kind of a tough spot with her husband, and they've been thinking kind of back and forth about like, should we try for a baby now or should we wait until after you want to compete? Because she's competed before, she's done well, she has so much potential, and she's an amateur bikini competitor, and she's like, I really just am not sure what we want to do, because I don't want to feel selfish, but I really do want to compete first, because like she really wants to be able to get on stage and really prove to herself that she can do way better than her last showing. She just was not with the right coach before, and now, because we've only been in off season together, and I told her like, honestly, like, you can't feel selfish, because at the end of the day, like, you're gonna feel selfish no matter what, and you don't want to regret not doing it, but at the same time, don't count yourself out for doing this after having a baby, because you're probably gonna keep wanting to do it. So yeah, and I think you really following your intuition, like you're explaining, and not being very open to a timeline, is so admirable. And I think so more competitors should have that mindset, because if you're pregnant and you're about to have a baby, and you're not thinking about how like much your life is going to change and how much you will not have control over your life and your body, then you're really setting yourself up for either failure or a lot of disappointment.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of taking out the joy almost, or you put yourself at risk, I think, to take out the joy of just being in that first year of with being with your baby. And I don't think there's anything wrong with like snapping back, getting on stage within 6 months or whatever, like some people do, like Haley, right? Her
Right.
first
Yeah.
child. But like no one's forcing you to do anything. And I think that's like what people think, especially at the pro level or at the like the high level amateur. It's like you don't no one's expecting you to just bounce back and get back on stage.
Right.
It's your job in a way, but like your job is coaching. Your job is posing coaching. Competing is like almost like a side hustle, right?
It's a luxury, honestly.
Yeah, it's a luxury.
Yeah.
It's a privilege. And
Yeah.
so, but like your baby is a whole ass human.
Yeah.
And like they deserve you to be there for you.
Yes.
So there shouldn't ever be that pressure, especially before the baby's even born, to
Yeah.
not compete.
That's such a good point. That's such a huge point, and it's like it I mean on a even like on a different level but kind of same subject matter. Like I mean I've seen women talking about, like, and I've even had women come to me, with consults, like, hey, I want to drop, 10 pounds or get lean before I get pregnant, or I want to, look a certain way when I'm pregnant. And then like to me, it's the same exact talking point. Like you choose the things that make the experience a positive experience or a negative experience. Like you said, you don't want to just be so married to a certain very kind of like surface level goal when like your body is literally creating a tiny person. And like to me, it's so, and this is like with anything I do, including competing, I hate to choose to have a mindset or adopt a mindset that's going to rob me of enjoying and being present in an experience.
Yeah.
And like to me, like that's just part of getting the most out of life. And that's like that's important to me, too, is like you have a lot of choices that are in your control and you have some things that are outside of your control. Your mindset and the things that you choose to focus on are in your control. For the most part. Obviously, some are not as lucky, but for most of us, probably most people listening to this podcast, just like prep, it's you choose your hard. And I refuse to like, I have my moments, obviously. I look back at pictures of my body when I was prepping, my face when it was, my diet face. And I see, I've gained extra body fat. Obviously, my waist is no longer snatched. My clothes fit different. And so I have my moments where I'm like, oh, back in the day. But, but I have to be able to support, myself through this. And obviously it helps to have a supportive partner who's also there to kind of reassure you, and also have friends and a good group of friends that can encourage you through, moments where you're probably feeling a little bit discouraged. And also your environment, filtering your feed, literally your social media. You have...
How have you done that recently?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like I either mute people or... You okay?
Yeah, I just have like a random like spasm in my back.
But obviously the algorithm is powerful, and whatever you click on, it's going to keep showing you the things that it thinks you're interested in. And so, if you don't have to unnecessarily unfollow everybody, because, people get their feelings hurt, whatever. But you can mute people and filter your feed so that you're not constantly seeing, and this is even an off season. It's like if you're in off season, you're constantly seeing people in prep. Of course, you're going to be 3 months into off season to be like, oh, I need to start prep again. So,
especially if you're letting your mind get to a place where you think you're less worthy because you're not in prep, or because you don't have those pictures, or you didn't people I think want to jump back into prep too, just because like they have unfinished business, right? But if you really
Yeah.
have unfinished business and you really want like redemption over your past physique, like that shit takes time. It takes maturity. It takes
Yeah.
like, you know, it takes you being more in control of those emotions again, because the emotions that come through when you see that post of someone shredded and in prep and it looks like fun and like, oh, I gotta get back there, it's like that is the thing, that's the devil on your shoulder,
Yeah.
that's like pulling you away from that redemption. And people just don't get that. They think it's more of a matter of like, oh, I just gotta do it, like it's time. It's like, no, you don't. You have to do it when you're ready. And just because you think you're mentally ready doesn't mean you're physically ready. And that's the most important part. Because like the judges don't care how much you wanted to prep. The judges care how you look on show day.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And even like for someone, you know, even as a pro, you know, just because you've won that status too, it does not necessarily mean, okay, I'm going to go on pro stage and dominate. And it also, what did you say?
Maybe for you it did, but for most
Some
of
people,
us,
for some people, and it like, you know, you have your genetic freaks, not even just in bikini, but like look at Keon. I mean, he was natural for how many years
yeah.
before, you know, and just like Sid Gillen is a freaking freak. Like
Yeah.
no one can just be that.
She looks
Um,
like some people that like have been lifting for like 10 years, but like she looked like that when she was 16.
right. Like
You
if
know,
she,
like
if you go back and see pictures of her, like it's ridiculous.
yeah.
It's ridiculous. So, it like, and all that to say, I kind of digress, but like even for someone like if you've been competing for years and years and years, your body you can only cash so many checks. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have to take some time, even if you have the muscularity that you need. You might not necessarily need an off season to build. You might just need an off season to recover metabolically, hormonally, to come back with a package that you can present and like be successful. My last prep was a testament to that. So, yeah, man.
Do you ever think back to after your 2022 Olympia, which is your best one yet, um, where you got fourth? Do you ever
Mhm.
think back to that time and the off season between that and your next season in 2023 and kind of wish that you had taken that year off to do this instead of done the 2023 season?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure
Yes,
if that was a
for
thought.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it like it was hard because I mean, you just keep seeing this happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, oh, it's right there. Like you can literally just like almost reach out and grab it. And so I was like, well, what if next year is my year?
Yeah.
And yeah, so um, I was like, okay, you know, obviously we've gotten close. It just seemed, I just wanted it, man. I just really freaking wanted it. Um, but obviously, you know, hindsight's 2020. And I couldn't have necessarily, I guess, predicted that the prep would have gone the way that it did. But yeah, to answer your question, I would totally have probably gotten just like taken that year off and then come back
Yeah.
after.
Do you think that, so knowing what you know now, having had like, you know, obviously all of your success, and then I wouldn't call 2023 a fail, but it was obviously you feel like you went backwards a little bit, right? And so what would you do now differently, you know, fast forward to when you're post baby, life is good, you own a house, your life is all super stable, maybe, you know, 2025, 2026, what would you do differently your next prep that you can think of?
I think really one of the obvious ones is get, you know, blood work done and kind of just make sure everything looks good. Um, but, you know, obviously given that's a green light, I think I don't know. Just because each prep we've kind of gone in, you know, we always go in with a strategy like we kind of map out a timeline. Here's the shows that we have that we're probably going to try to use to qualify. And, the ones that I picked last year were pretty close to the deadline, like within a month, 2 months. So we weren't like just dragging the prep out. Um, but so I think the biggest thing is just kind of knowing what I know now as far as like, okay, I don't have to necessarily, I'm not as concerned about qualifying. Obviously, we've proven time and time again that, I am a contender.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just continuing to kind of like strategically plan the timeline so that, I qualify. I only have, maybe 6, 8 weeks before the Olympia.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once Olympia is done, like I'm out. Um, but I mean, and plus we've always only ever done it, naturally. So that's not really anything that to me is going to change. That's just something that, for me, I hold true to myself. So I think we would just continue to do it the way that we've always
Get in
done
there,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just do it. Listen to your body. I think
Yeah.
that's the best thing you can do. And with natural athletes, it is hard when you don't have any other tools other than
Yeah.
diet, cardio, maybe some core burn, like you know,
Yeah, literally, yeah.
um, and just like the push and pull type
Yeah,
of method where you use
exactly.
refeeds and diet breaks and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um, and also just like learning more about your stress management and like
for
what
sure.
you need mentally.
Yeah.
Um, do you feel like you changed anything from like your 2022 to 2023 prep to try to improve that at all?
It's so funny because, and so the one of the other reasons I was like, oh, 2023 prep should be a freaking cakewalk
No
was
way.
because 2022 I moved and then I also planned and had a wedding and a bachelorette party. So, and then I placed top four, which like, on paper you'd be like, there's no way this girl is, gonna have all this stuff going on and have a successful prep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, for me going into 2023, I was like, oh, I have, my stress management tools pretty set. My toolbox is ready to go. But all I had to do was focus on prep and work, which is flexible for me, right? Obviously, as a coach, we can kind of manipulate our schedule and only take on what we can manage. And so my focus, literally, primarily that year was prepping. And so I was like, this should be fine. And so it wasn't. It didn't make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's
so
probably just more of the physiological change in your
yeah,
body, the
for
fact
sure.
that like you've been going and going for several years in a row
Yeah,
since you turned pro, pretty much, without
yeah,
taking much more than like 5 months off or something.
yeah. Five,
Yeah.
6 months, and I mean, I'm not the first like the first competitor that we've seen that happen to. I mean, we see physiques get tired, so
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, I'm not immune to this.
And
And I was
everyone
like,
is a little bit different in their resilience, and I think we
mhm,
often like, especially as a pro who has been doing it successfully, you start to just like consider that that's your baseline, like that you
right,
have that ability and that you always will.
for
But
sure,
that's the thing about our bodies, like we can do a lot to control the variables, but we can't always control all the variables because
right,
some of the variables are just how our body is responding and how our how our recovery is and how our metabolism is, how our health, like our internal health, our hormones, our thyroid, and especially someone with PCOS and endometriosis, there's more that that you just don't have control over, right? Like
literally,
you
yeah.
have tools, like I know you've used a lot of ice baths to help with endo pain and things like
Hmm.
that, but at a certain point, like
Yeah,
your body is just gonna tell you we're done.
yeah,
And I've had
yeah,
that happen to clients, and it sucks. I've had it happen to myself, and I kept going, and I wish I didn't.
yeah.
Um, when your body just isn't working anymore how it should, because at the end of the day, we have to always consider that like competing is not a healthy sport, and it's not where our bodies just aren't really meant to be that lean
No.
truly for like at least for very long. And so when you're thinking about like, all right, how do I get to the Olympia stage? I have to qualify at a show, so I have to start prep at certain times. So you're spending a lot of time very, very lean. And especially as a natural athlete, but even enhanced, that takes a big toll on your body.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's why we have to consider health so much. That's why getting blood work done regularly is so important, and being very self-aware is also a big part of it, because
the self-awareness is like huge.
Yeah.
It's
How
huge.
do you feel like you have worked on your self-awareness as an athlete just over the years?
I feel like it's a conscious effort. You can't just take for granted that you're going to be like, oh, I have it all figured out. Like, once I've, done this, I cross all these boxes, like, we're good.
Get to stay there.
Right. Like, there's also just no external source of gratification and satisfaction that's going to really solidify that. Like, you could be the most successful person in the world and have no self-awareness at all. So I think just always reminding myself and having these moments where I kind of check in with me and make sure that I'm good with me and my choices and the things that I'm doing day to day and where I see myself going. I think I forget if I'm answering your question properly, to be completely honest.
Your thoughts about self-awareness and how you specifically, like, what are some things that you have done to kind of check yourself on, like, how to improve that?
So I think also just knowing, like, reminding myself no one has it all figured out. Like, I think it's really common, especially now on social media, all you really see is people like buying these like super luxurious homes, nice cars, like all this luxury stuff, and like it can honestly really make you feel like you're just like not doing anything right. And I think it, like, for me, again, controlling your environment, it's important for me to kind of take a step back whenever I'm second guessing myself and like where I am and where I see myself going, and reminding myself like, dude, you're doing pretty good relatively to like a lot of people, first of all. And I love this, but you also have to go back and again, I feel like I always relate everything to prep because that's just what is so easily graspable for me. Yeah, it's what I'm good at. And whenever you're second guessing your progress or where you're at or where you are, you go back and compare to where you were 2 years ago, 3 years ago. What did your physique look like? You go back and you compare, what was my mindset like years ago? What was what were my weaknesses? What were my strengths? What was I good at? What did I need to work on? What was it that I had on my list of things that I felt like I wanted to accomplish by this point? And you go and you're like, holy shit, dude, like I'm so much better than the person I was years ago. And not even just in the things that you've been able to accomplish and the things that you've been able to like purchase or accumulate, but just who you are in yourself and what it is that you value and how you uphold those values.
How do you handle things like stress or drama, relationships, jobs, stress, things like that, like how we respond to things that happen to us or around us is a big part of self-awareness. And like maturity, big time maturity comes from like what you're talking about, like recognizing like, wow, me 2 years ago would have handled this that's happening now so differently, right? Like the you in your prep like last year, like how would you have handled that 2-3 years ago when you were like a brand new pro and or before you turned pro? I think every time you reach a certain level of status or authority or like skill at something, especially with competing, there's that celebration of this is where I'm at now, this is so cool, like look at me, but there's also that awareness of like, well, how did I get here? I had to be somewhere to get here. I had to improve myself and work harder and just check myself on like, what do I need to get here? Now that I'm here, like you're not at the top because there's gonna be people chasing you, first of all, and then there's always people better that are just waiting for you to step down or fall. And that's especially true in competing, but like if we can think about it with our life, like with our job
Well,
or
even life in general, or like even friendships, relationships. I think like there's definitely been situations in my life where I forget where there was an audiobook I listened to in my 2022 prep because I was like about to blow a gasket with like managing um, managing wedding stuff and prepping and then like whatever. But it had just talked about how like even just learning that not everybody is meant to be in your life forever. Some people are meant to just kind of drift in, teach you a lesson, and kind of just dip out. And I think like past me or young me would have like taken some of those so personally and been like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Why are these
yeah,
people, why don't these people want to stick around? What did I do wrong? And sometimes it's really just a matter of, it just, that was what it was supposed to do.
yeah,
As long as you learn from that. And so, yeah, even that like little bit of kind of just being aware of, oh, I'm not spiraling because so and so doesn't like me, or, and you also just go back and look at like your core group of friends and you realize, you know, it's their reflection of well, the people that you're around, the people you surround yourself with are a reflection of you and the choices that you've made. And if you can look at that group and go, damn, this is a pretty solid group of people, you're probably not doing that bad.
yeah, yeah. I think that's really important. You realize, like, just as I think as we grow up, we realize how silly we maybe were, like, in our young look under. What am I thinking of? Early 20s. I think of that for myself, like early to mid 20s. I used to be so much more apt to take something personally, like if someone didn't like me.
Oh yeah.
And I also look at that period of time and I recognize, like, well, that was when I was, dating people that were not right for me
Yeah.
because I, just get someone to like me and oh, like now we're in a relationship and so it's gonna, I just have to keep making sure they like me. And same thing
Yeah.
with friends or bosses or things like that. Like I used to be so concerned with how much someone likes me, not
Same.
just likes, but like thinks that I'm useful
Right.
and
Same.
depends on me.
Yeah.
I used to like really thrive on dependency, on someone
Yeah.
depending on me and
Yeah.
people pleasing. And honestly, like since I started letting that go, my life is just like
I
just
mean, dude, like
so much
you've
better.
like I admire, and I've told you this before, but I admire that so much about you, and it's just like one of the things that I like try to not necessarily I guess adopt because I can't just be you, but to like remind myself like, oh, I don't have to settle for thinking that it's all about just people being able to use me a certain way or being reliable or dependable for other people. I also have to be, reliable and dependable on myself.
Yeah.
And if I'm constantly chasing, other people's satisfaction, I'm never, no matter what I succeed in, I'm never gonna feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
And
I,
so watching you do like that is like just I think so badass, and I think you're super cool for that.
yeah. I think it's important to be able to be depended on. Like that's
For
part of being
sure.
a friend. But I think the thing that helped me the most was just being able to realize like not everyone deserves that from me.
Hmm.
And
Oh
understanding
yeah.
like what you said, like I can look at my group of friends, the people that I talk to the most, the people that I go to when I have an issue or when I have something to celebrate. And like these are not only people that treat me really well as a friend, like truly treat me well, but they are just really good people doing badass shit. Like
Yeah.
they have it they are figuring things out and they're doing well at it and they're making it look good and they like me too, like they depend on me for things too.
And
And I
no
just
one's gatekeeping their secrets. No one's like, "Oh, well, I want to level up, but I don't want you to,
I want
eat
you to
too."
feel
It's
better.
like,
Yeah.
right, it's like no, like it's having that exchange of ideas and those conversations where you can go, "Oh, I would have never thought of it that way, but like, I could see how that would be beneficial to apply to myself." And like
Yeah.
I think that's also just super super valuable.
Yeah, and it has helped me. Like, if I ever get questions from friends or whatever about like, how do you do this, or like just asking for advice, I always think about that. I first just like feel really grateful about it, but I also think about I can, what my initial reaction, or maybe things that I used to do or something I made a mistake on in the past, like this is my chance to really like build upon that. And instead of, like you said, gatekeeping it, because like I don't want anyone to be as good as me, like I want people to be better, because
Yeah.
if the people around me are better, then that pushes me to be better too.
Yeah.
And I've I've had that thought, and like that's been a big part of me continuing to push with my own athletic career, is because as a pro, or as any competitor who has failed and not done well on stage, like me as a pro, it's easy to get in your head and feel jealousy over people that are in your circle that are doing really well. And honestly, like there was a time where I realized like I'm just way too jealous of people that like they're just doing their best. Like they're just doing what they're trying, like they're just doing what makes them happy.
Yeah.
You know, I it doesn't, just because they might have better genetics, or they had a better situation or better environment, or they had a better coach or a better program, doesn't mean that I can't have that too. It just means that I need to work on finding that for me.
Yeah.
And I remember when
I
I
see.
first met you, when I first like started knowing about you back in like 2020,
Yeah.
2021, like when did you go pro? Was it 2021?
2019.
2019, that's right.
Yeah.
So around that time, like we obviously had the same coach, and I remember just feeling like kind really like a level of like friendly jealousy about just how fucking awesome you are, and like how good you are at competing, and how great you are at like all of these things that could to do with competing. Because I had gotten through my pro debut season in 2019, and it just fucking failed. And then, you know, you at the same time were just like, win 2 pro shows in a row. I was like, I had that thought of like, why can't that be me?
Yeah.
But what it did was I thought about this at the same times, like, because I met you in 2021 for the first time, like, man, she's just such a dope soul. She's such a good person. And like, she deserves that. Like, everyone deserves to have that,
Yeah.
right? And it
Thanks,
really
man.
like, 2020 when I filed for divorce, and I like went through a lot of just like healing, I feel like
Yeah.
2021 too, that was a big part of that, just realizing that like the people in my life are like, I want good people in my life, people that are good but also just really good at what they do, because that
Mm.
allows me to push myself. Because if I have any level of jealousy or any level of like want, then that's going to hold me back from being my best. So why not look at those people that I can see as either role models or just people doing it well and doing it right, and look at
Yeah.
that as inspiration and just be really proud of them. And I
For
think
sure.
I try to bring that into my coaching when I have clients who are like, really want to prep, or I really want to do a fat loss phase, or this or that. And I just think about like, learn to love where you're at and be excited for those people instead of jealous. Like,
Yeah.
instead of having FOMO for people in prep, learn to be excited about what they're doing and let that drive you to have an even better off season.
Hell yeah. I love that. Like literally every bit of it, because it's just like I not necessarily, I guess I would say in competing I've felt that, but in other aspects of life I've definitely experienced my own bouts of like, looking at someone's life, or looking, at how successful somebody is or what they're doing, and kind of just being like kind of not bitter, but like, dang, like,
It's kind of like, man, I wish, why can't that be me?
right, yeah. And like it also, you also have to kind of think about or remind yourself like people have their own struggles and things that they had to go through to like get there, and are probably still experiencing from time to time. Like it's not just, I think part of that jealousy comes from assuming that just because somebody has like done this, this, and this, so like that they're just so much better off. And like
Yeah,
we've
they don't
seen
have anything to worry
competitors,
about.
exactly, and
Yeah.
it's
And it's like, we all have things
never
to
like
worry
that.
about. We all have failures that we're dealing with. We all have like shit in our lives, and
Yeah,
yeah, that's the thing that people miss when they're looking at the highlight reel of
for sure.
social media, or even just friends that like don't really tell you what's truly going on in their lives. Like
Oh yeah.
I've had that, and I recognized that like when I was, after I went through my divorce, I was like, oh, I really didn't tell anybody about what I was going through until after the
Mm,
fact. Like maybe
that's
I should
hard.
maybe I should have friends that I feel okay telling people about
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and that's another part of growth is like
Yeah.
knowing how do I get what do I need in order to like live my best life and have the best people I can in my life that actually put value into my life, not just take.
Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. Oh, so many little nuggets in there.
Yeah. What does self love look like for you, and how has that changed a little bit
Oh my
over the course of
gosh.
like being in prep, being in off season, now being in baby season?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question because I definitely have had my struggles with self love and self esteem in general. Just like from past, experiences, relationships with people that, took a lot from me. Um, and for a long time, like it just took me, it really wasn't until I started competing that I learned, that it's actually okay for me to feel good about myself for more than 5 minutes. um, and to also be open about feeling good about myself, whether that be like posting a selfie or talking
Getting
about something
dressed
that
up
I've
nice.
accomplished.
Yeah.
What?
Getting dressed up nice and like, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, not being afraid to take up space in a room, or talk about things that you've done that you're proud of. So to me, self love has just like it's really a journey for me. Some people, they seem like they wake up out of bed and they're like, yeah, I'm that bitch today. Like, and like for me, it's like a little slower process. But I think it's just really, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but like really just learning to accept yourself for where you are and just really be okay with understanding that we are forever a work in progress. Like, we are never going to just be done working on you. Like, and like sometimes that can be intimidating, just like if you're in fat loss, right? If you have a long way to go to get from point A to point B, it's never going to be a linear road. It's always going to have, its ups, it's going to have a lot of downs, and you have to learn from those down moments and from those up moments because then that starts to kind of flatten out the line a little bit instead of it going like this. But I think self love is just really accepting you and embracing you and not just, I think, starting to see some of the things that you thought were weaknesses as strengths, and really kind of honing in on those and just letting it, I don't know, letting yourself flourish. Like when those times come and like you feel them, you start to feel those times of like you're evolving and you're growing, don't resist them. Like I
Yeah.
think it's easy because those are also kind of uncomfortable too because you're like, this is unfamiliar to me, this doesn't feel quite right. um, and it's important that you lean into that and allow yourself to kind of take that next level up. And then the more you do that, the more it becomes, sorry, the motorcycle drove by. The more you do that, though, the more of a habit that becomes. Because I think sometimes, too, it becomes habitual to shy away from those moments and kind of go, no, not me. It's not, not today. It's not my time. And saying yes to more things that can help you evolve. That was huge for me, is like I had to learn how to say not yes to everything because
Yeah.
don't do that.
Also about
But
saying no. Self love is saying no to things that
yes,
you don't
boundaries.
want in your life and do
Yeah,
not give you back energy. It only
for
takes.
sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Having those, and yeah, setting boundaries for yourself, which was huge because I also was really bad at that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely, I would probably honestly consider myself a bit of a doormat for a lot of my life. And I was like,
You really
this
stepped
is
out
it.
of that. Like, just since I've known you, I know that you probably had a lot of progress with that before that time period, but like, just since I've known you, you've gotten so much better at setting boundaries
Thanks.
with like people around you, with clients, with social media. Like, it's hard to feel like everyone wants your presence, because like it's cool feeling like I'm that bitch, right?
Right.
But it's also overwhelming at times, and it can be overwhelming, especially when you're also a coach. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have all of these people who depend on me for
Right.
their physical and their mental progress.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be overwhelming, especially the more you think about it and the more you maybe like doubt yourself. But like you said, the
Mm-hmm.
more you lean into some of the discomfort that you know in your heart and in your gut that's good for you, the better you become at it. And like I listened to a podcast recently, Layla Hormozy, and she said true leadership is doing less things but doing them really really good, and learning to do them better. It's not all about saying yes to everything and doing a million things and taking on more and more and more. It's about how do I do better with less so that
Yeah.
I can delegate the other things that I want to do more of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that
I love
is
that.
also, that's in leadership in business, like how she was talking about it, but it's also just leadership in your own life, leadership
Mm-hmm.
for yourself, and learning to improve your life and get to where you want to be in life, so that you can, because you can't do everything. You can't be just everything
Unfortunately,
to
yeah.
everybody, including yourself.
Yeah, that was a hard reality to accept. Even now, like when I, was going through my first trimester shitstorm of symptoms, I have these boxes in every room staring at me like, "Hello, aren't you gonna fucking unpack me?" And I'm like, I just don't have it in me today. And like, even in that sense, like you just feel like you're failing, and then like you also remember like I'm growing kidneys today. Like it's.
That's gonna be the name of the podcast. I'm growing kidneys today. Oh,
Right? Like your little, it's growing hands and feet. There's like a whole organ system in there that's forming and developing as we speak.
takes a lot out
So,
of you.
yeah, man, I underestimated that pretty significantly. Because also, too, like, we endure a lot of things during prep. We endure hunger, fatigue, soreness, whatever. And I was like, I got this. Like, I'll be fine. And it took my ass out. So, yeah, I wasn't one of those unicorns that just like doesn't have any, pregnancy symptoms. Fuck them. but,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I
Um,
wonder if you'll be the person like Christina, also coach with you, who's like, I can't wait to be pregnant again. She always like made me laugh so much when she's like, I really just want to be pregnant again. It's really
like,
crazy.
oh my, honestly, in those moments, I was like, damn, because we obviously, like I said, we want to have two, so I was
Yeah,
like, fuck, I'm gonna have to do this all over again.
yeah.
But
I
I don't
think
know.
knowing the person you are and how much you want to be a mom, once you go through it all, you're gonna be like, yeah, this is pretty cool. I want another one, and then we'll be done.
I mean, even when I was like laying there, like eyes half closed, like I might throw up any second, I was like, oh, but like there's just a little baby in there. Like, how cool is that? So even then,
Well,
but
that's part of leaning into the discomfort of stuff, and even
yeah,
like as a competitor in prep, like, oh, I really don't want to do this cardio,
right.
and like today I was like that, and this morning, and I was like, I really don't want to go into that room and do my Peloton intervals, and it was so nice outside, because today is summer solstice, so it was like really nice, really early, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go to the lake and I'm gonna do a little run, and I did that, and it was so pretty, and
No,
it
I love
hurt,
that.
but it was definitely like it was worth it because of just like how beautiful it was, and how much I got to just be alone in my thoughts of like what
Yes.
I'm doing this for. So
Yeah. I will say like prep jogs were like some of my favorite, like just like you said, just being in your own thoughts. And like honestly, that was when I meditated the most.
mhm.
Was when I was like out there outside, or like listening to audiobooks, and you're just like, I don't know, something about the endorphins and like being
Yeah,
outdoors is just like the best combination, especially if you, shameless plug, if you take like cured rise and some like gummies before,
I've
bruh,
never taken that before cardio. I've hit my pen,
dude.
but I've never done that. So
Okay, definitely take, I mean, obviously three, but like maybe four. But,
or rise,
um, yeah, yeah, for
rise.
rise.
Okay. I
I've
was
done
like,
that.
really? 4 of those? before a run?
Oh my God, no. You'll be like running like this.
Like running through the universe.
Yeah. I'm running to the sun.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, that's a good pair. Good pair.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
Try it. Text me and let me know how it goes.
I will. All right. Well, I gotta get to my next adventure, and I know you probably gotta take a nap. So, thank you so much for coming on. I loved catching up with you, and I'm really
Me
excited for
too.
just everything you're growing inside and out. So,
Thanks, man. I love you, and I'm just excited to cheer you on for this prep because it's been a minute since it's like I'm on the bench now. You're prepping. I can't wait to see you. You look amazing. So,
thank you. I'm
yeah.
excited. All right. Bye.
Bye.